Okay, it's time for our third story today. We're going to reach into the box again and we'll find out what our story is. It's called Tooth Fairy's First Night. This book was written by someone named Anne Bowen, and the pictures were done by someone named John Berkeley. Let's find out about Tooth Fairy's first night. For as long as she could remember, Sally wanted to be a tooth fairy, just like her mama and her grandma and her great-grandma before her. On the night of her 7th birthday, Mama presented Sally with her very own tooth fairy purse. "Tonight, you must get your first tooth," said Mama. "With that first tooth, you will become an official tooth fairy," said Grandma. "We know you will follow in the tradition of all great tooth fairies," said Great-Grandma. Sally fluttered, she wrapped her wings around her in a big hug. "I will be the best tooth fairy in the world," she promised. "Remember, a good tooth fairy is always patient," said Mama. "A good tooth fairy always looks on the bright side of things," said Grandma. "A good tooth fairy always gets her tooth," said Great-Grandma. "And don't forget," they called, as Sally flew into the night, "you must never, never wake a sleeping child." Sally's first tooth belonged to Miranda K. Michaels. Her tooth had fallen out just that morning, right after biting into a taffy doodle at recess time. When Sally arrived at Miranda K.'s house, she wiggled through a crack beneath the front door, and she sat down in the darkness to catch her breath. She pulled out her flashlight and map, searching for Miranda's room. "It should be down the hall, last door on the left," she whispered. "Now I just need to find that tooth, and I'll be on my way." Slowly, carefully, Sally reached beneath Miranda K.'s pillow. "Oh no," Sally thought. "What is this?" Sally pulled out a pink envelope and read the letter inside. "Dear Tooth Fairy, my friend Emily says you are not real, but my friend Sam says you are. He saw you once flying out his bedroom window. I want to know who is right. So I am hiding my tooth in a very secret place. A place only a smart tooth fairy can find. Yours truly, Miranda K. Michaels." Sally's lip quivered. It trembled. Mama and Grandma and Great-Grandma never said anything about a letter. A tiny tear trickled down her cheek. Sally blew her nose, and whispered, "A good tooth fairy is always patient. I am a good tooth fairy, and I am going to get that tooth." And then Sally noticed another piece of paper tucked inside that envelope. "Dear TF." TF stands for Tooth Fairy. "Here's your first clue. This place is your size, but too small for me. You can eat cherry cupcakes while sipping hot tea." Sally thought and thought, and then she thought harder. A dollhouse! Sally spotted a house just her size beneath the window. Inside, she flew up the stairs and down, flittering from one room to the next. At last, in the kitchen, Sally found what she was looking for. Tiny chairs around a tiny table, set with tiny cups and a teapot. And inside one of the cups was another note, but no tooth. Sally's lip quivered, it trembled, and she read the note. "Dear TF, quarters, pennies, nickels, dimes are dropped in here for spending times." Sally took a deep breath and whispered, "A good fairy always looks on the bright side of things. I am a good tooth fairy, and I will find that tooth." Sally thought, and she thought harder. A piggy bank! Sally spotted a big pink pig in the corner of Miranda Kay's room. "This is gonna be tight," she said as she squeaked down inside the pig. Sally stumbled about in the dark, bumping her shins on several coins until she remembered her flashlight. The light brightened the inside of the pig, making all the pennies, nickels, dimes shimmer. Beneath a 50-cent coin, Sally found another note, but no tooth. This time Sally's lower lip didn't quiver. It didn't tremble, not even once. "A good tooth fairy always gets her tooth," she whispered, "and I'm not leaving until I get mine." She read the note. "Dear Tooth Fairy," oops, dear TF. "Inside her pouch, all soft and furry, you'll find my tooth, so you must hurry." Sally thought, and she thought harder. A kangaroo! Sally looked around the room, and there on Miranda Kay's bed were stuffed animals everywhere. Right in the middle of all of those animals was Miranda Kay, sound asleep. A good tooth fairy never ever wakes a sleeping child, Sally reminded herself. Sally flew from one animal to another. A black bear, 3 tiny mice, a brown rabbit, but there was no kangaroo. Sally plopped down on the pink nose of a cat to rest her wings and think. Suddenly, the cat's whiskers twitched. With one swipe of its paw, the cat sent Sally flying up into the air. She fell down onto Miranda Kay's pillow, right next to Miranda Kay's nose. Snart, sniffle, snuffle, snored Miranda Kay. Sally held her breath. Please don't wake up. Sally crawled beneath the blankets, and there, snuggled against Miranda Kay, was a soft, gray kangaroo. Slowly, carefully, Sally reached inside the little pouch of the kangaroo, and there it was, Miranda Kay's tooth. Sally flittered, she fluttered. A good tooth fairy always gets her tooth. Now I am really a tooth fairy. Sally placed something beneath Miranda Kay's pillow. Then she flew into the night with her first tooth tucked inside her purse. Early the next morning, when Miranda Kay woke up, she reached under her pillow and found a note. Dear Miranda Kay, yes, I am really real, and I can prove it. I hid your surprise in a very secret place. Here's your first clue. And there's Miranda Kay reading the note with a really strange look on her face. So the trick she played on Sally, Sally played back on her. Okay, boys and girls, everyone stand up. We're going to pretend that we're tooth fairies on our first night.